Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back. My name is Josh, and we are continuing our Money Talk series where we explore more about personal finance, real estate, and getting out of debt. Today we have a very special guest all the way from the UK. Alex, how's it going?
Hello, everyone. It's going very well. As you know, I've got my tea now, so I am a very, very happy person. Um, so yeah, for everyone that hasn't seen me before, my name is Alex. I do live in the UK, and yeah, I'm very excited to have this session with you, Josh.
So tell us a little bit about your background. What do you do?
I was born and raised for a while in Romania, and then when I was quite young, I moved to Italy, where my family lives currently. And then I studied there for 8 years. I did all my high school years. And then I've decided that Italy is not for me anymore. I want to just kind of do something different, especially because the educational system in Italy is quite antique and I couldn't deal with it anymore. And I was like, okay, I want to study. And since for some unknown reason, I've learned English when I was younger from television, I was like, okay, just gonna move to the UK. So I moved to the UK where I've done a degree in psychology, and basically all my academic background is in psychology and social cognition, focusing quite a bit on organizational psychology, which is basically psychology applied to the workplace. And from a work perspective, I've been working and I've been trained in talent strategy. So basically helping big organizations understand who are the high performers, why are they good at their job, and then if there's any personality traits that you can kind of pair in order to understand their potential and how they can increase the capability of their workforce.
How would you describe that for someone who doesn't understand?
Yeah, so I think a simple way of looking at it is whenever you would go through, let's say you apply for a job, okay? When you apply for a job, most of the time you would have to do a bunch of different tests, and maybe you probably do an interview and maybe an assessment center. A big part of my job was basically designing that end-to-end process on how you are getting recruited, okay? And then at the same time, in order for you to be able to design that process, you need to first understand what exactly are you looking for, right, as a company. And in order to understand that, most of the times we would design what's called a competency or a behavioral framework, right? And that competency and behavioral framework could have behaviors such as communication, collaboration, how you gather information, how you process that information, right? And then you look at these different behaviors, and each one of them has different levels. And for each one of these levels, for each individual role, you want to understand at which level you need to be on each behavior and what are the key behaviors that you need in that specific role. And once you have this, on the back of that, you can design all these different processes to recruit people. And of course, that can also be used for development purposes as well. So if you have a team of people that you understand that communication, let's say, because they're working in a call center, right? And you understand that what's important for them is to be able to communicate in a very concise and transparent manner with the customer and also be empathetic, then you want to train the people on that specific behavior to have, let's say, communication level 4, even though their average currently is a level 2.
So in the terms of personal finance, because you're also in the personal finance world, I've seen a few of your videos on it. What traits can we, I guess, see from successful people that can we implement to ourselves?
I think that is quite difficult because it comes to traits, but it also comes a lot to the habits that we form throughout our lifetime, right? And I think if you are looking at personality traits and you have someone that is, for example, more extroverted and more open in the way they approach things, it's quite likely that they might also be more willing to take risks, right? So if you see a stock, so now, for example, there's the Airbnb stock that just IPO'd and I was like trying to like buy some, I'm probably more willing than someone that's a bit more introverted and careful about things most of the time and just kind of jump into it. But at the same time, that can also be my downfall as well, because I may take a lot of risk, but then if I don't spend enough time actually researching, which is not what necessarily people like me would always do, I can find myself that, okay, I took that step, but then I find myself that I've made some quite bad decisions that might impact my investment. thinking about other personality traits that so I was saying that I think a big thing to focus on is mostly your habits that you formed and how you approach investing in the first place. There's always that conversation of focusing long term rather than short term, right? And if you buy for the future. I think the reason why that is such a big thing is because you're not impacted by mental biases such as fear of losing out, that you're going to invest very quickly into a company because, oh, I feel that the stock is a very good price right now, let me buy it. And that means that you're not going to invest the time to understand, is this actually a good company to invest money in, or I'm just investing because I have the fear of missing out, right? So there's all these kind of things that this mental biases that will impact you when you try to make those decisions. And if you have a kind of long-term vision, you're like, okay, I'm going to sit down, do all my research. And then once you do your research, you decide what to invest before even the market opens. So you don't get as influenced by seeing a price just going down, like, okay, I need to jump in now and buy it. So I think that's probably one of the key things I would say that's important to focus on. And a lot of good investors are doing this. As humans, right, it's very hard for us to not be emotional about things. That's, as much as you try to be very rational, you really aren't. And the moment you understand this, you understand that you need to approach things in a different way. Because when you're self-aware that you have all these different things that are against you when it comes to investing, the moment you understand that, then you can start approaching investing in a more rational manner, in the sense that you will invest and do that research and do all those things before you put yourself in the situation that you see a price spike, or you see that there's a new, IPO today that you're like, oh, I should invest into that. Because those are the moments that you can't really control your emotions anymore. When you see it, you react instantly without having the time to think about it anymore. And you can be self-aware of it, but there's still so much that you can control about that situation, unless you do all those things in advance.
You mentioned something very interesting, is the emotional aspect of it. How can we, check ourselves and see how we're doing and what we should do to be better?
When it comes to holiday, I think our mindset, it's a bit different, because we're much more willing in that period of time to spend money and create a different type of environment for ourselves, which is a bit more, Christmassy, for the lack of word, right? Because if you have the holidays coming, you are more willing to spend money, to spend time with your family. And there's a lot of things that, even considering the current circumstances with the virus going around, that are much harder than usual. Going to see your family a lot of times is not as easy as it used to be. And then you start seeing that a lot of limitations, and because of all the lockdowns and isolations that are happening around the world, is much harder to deal a lot of things with what's happening currently, and to see the light at the end of the tunnel, that, okay, the holidays are coming, I can spend time with my family. You're just like, everything seems very, very hard all the time, right? So I think some of the things that help to deal with this situation most in everyday life, but more specifically now, is trying to get a bit of a shift in how you're seeing things and shifting your perspective. Because one of the things I noticed about myself personally when the lockdown started, and I found it very, very difficult, because I'm a very extroverted person and I enjoy speaking to people and I enjoy the contact with others. I found it very hard to be isolated from everyone, right? And it took me probably a good month and a half to get out of that mindset and understand that, okay, the whole situation and my whole life has shifted completely from the things I used to do a month ago. And I'm also the type of person that I find it quite easy relatively to deal with change, which is not easy for everyone. And I still find it very, very difficult, right? And then after that month and a half, I realized that this can actually be a quite good opportunity to do a lot of different things that I was just not having the time or the possibility to do before the lockdown, or before having all this free time, let's call it. And that's how I decided to start YouTube, for example. And I've learned how to edit, I learned how to film, I learned how to speak in front of the camera, and everything that comes with it. that's when I start spending much more time in investing and learning about investing. And obviously you can apply psychology to that, but investing on its own is something that you can learn. So I think doing that shift in your perspective is going to be something that will make you feel much better. Then a second thing that I feel like is quite important and has helped me a lot, included in my routine and has started helping me, was making sure that I still do some kind of an exercise in this period. And again, it is quite difficult when you're not able to go to the gym. And something that was, for me, it was the type of exercise that would help me distress, especially when I would have quite hard days. I would just kind of go to the gym, put some music on, and not have to think about anything else. Well, that was not really possible to be doing in this time frame. Starting to go for a walk or listening to a good podcast or starting to meditate. This period of time in which I spent trying to reflect on things and try to understand a bit better, how am I feeling, what am I trying to achieve, that I found that very, very helpful in order to give me that longer term perspective on things rather than just being focused on right now when everything seems all over the place and very hard and all the lock.
Did you have a moment, like the light bulb moment, where you were like, I can't continue to feel sad or I guess caged in this process? And what made you switch? Like, what was the moment that you were like, this has to change?
The moment that I realized that there's no really any other way to get out of it, and that is going to continue sucking if I don't do something about it, right? And I think to some extent this is a bit of a misconception. There's never going to be, I think for most things, there's not really a light bulb kind of moment, right? I think the more you go through a process that a lot of times might be quite crappy, one step at a time, you start realizing some things. And then those things, you put them together and you have your light bulb moments like, oh my God, yeah, right? And then when you start doing those things, you realize that it's not going to be until you start slowly making those small changes that things are going to improve. And then you make one small change and something improves. And then you make another small change and something improves. And then you start making any changes and you revert back to where you are, which that's going to happen multiple times for the process. And now, as an example, now for the past 2 to 3 weeks, I haven't gone to the gym. And that started again because there was a lockdown in London. They closed everything down and I could have worked out at home. I haven't. And I'm feeling all rigid. My back is hurting from sitting down too much, right? So I think what's important for everyone to understand is that even when you have that, let's say, light bulb moment and you start doing things, you're always going to encounter barriers that are going to send you back. And I think it's quite important to focus on the process, and rather than having that end goal and be like, oh, I just want to, I don't know, get fit and get to this body mass, is just thinking about the process of and the steps that you're doing every day and making sure that you enjoy that process and understand that there's always going to be continuous setbacks and make that part of whatever you're doing.
Right. Yeah. That reminds me of the phrase. It's like, you can't really have it all, or at least you can't really have it all at the same time. I remember I had an internship last summer and I got the chance to talk with an MD, which is a manager director at this consulting firm. And this woman, you know, on paper, she has it all. She's like in her 30s, she has this huge title, which is so hard to get, right, in consulting.
Yeah.
Has a family, you know, she has the money, she has the house, she has the boat, all that perspective. And I remember having lunch with her and I asked her, like, so how do you balance it all? Because clearly I don't know how you do it. I don't even have half of your things and I don't know how you do it. And I remember she told me, I can't. There's days that I'm going to fail as a mom. There's days that I'm going to fail as an employee, and there's days that I'm gonna fail to myself, which was like an eye-opening, right, conversation to have, because you're expecting, especially people in this positions, to be like, just work hard enough, just do this, just do that. But in reality, you can't really, like, there's always going to be something that needs fixing, or this help, or there's something lagging in the process, because we're humans.
I couldn't agree more with that. And I think finding that equilibrium for yourself, whatever that might mean, is probably one of the hardest parts. Because in my case, let's say if I'm trying to balance the time that currently I'm without a job, so time of applying for jobs, time of doing YouTube videos, time spending investing on specific things, and all the other things I'm trying to do, if I am focusing and I'm doing very well on one of them, it might lift me up, but then the other ones might probably put me down at the same time, right? And is figuring out how much of each of those things that are important to you you should be doing in order to create and get that sense of equilibrium, and understand that there will be days when you're just going to wake up and you're going to hate everything and everyone, right? And that happens all the time to all of us. And I think people need to understand that that will happen all the times. And is those days when you wake up and you feel like crap that are going to make a difference when you are going to be able to push yourself and do something. Not as much as you usually do, but just do something.
Yeah, totally. Motivation's not always going to be there. Motivation, I feel like it's not even 50% there most of the time. So you just got to do it.
Exactly.
Okay, Alex, is there anything else that you would like to add to our conversation?
Yeah. So what I would say, especially now with the Christmas coming and then end of the year, New Year and New Year resolutions, I think some of the things that I will personally focus on, and I think is important and have made a big difference in the past for me as well, was reducing a lot the exposure that I'm having to negative media and negative events. And I think that's something that is so important and makes such a change in the way that you view and perceive things. And leaving aside of how biased it is as in the way that it presents events to you, depending on if the network leans more left or right and all those things, because the information is manipulated either way. But also the way that it makes you feel. The thing with media is the only things that will make it in the media in the first place are things that are media worthy or that are over the top negative most of the times, right? You won't see in the media things that are just standard. Even if you're thinking about something quite dramatic, but deaths that are happening in the world, you're not going to see in the media the deaths that happen by the millions because of car accidents, but you will see in the media this person got attacked by a shark, or that person died because an airplane crashed. But the thing is that those things will impact how much you think that shark attacks and plane crashes actually happen. And you think they happen much more often because you never see car crashes in the media, but you see these things happening. So you kind of form some associations, right? And I think the more you manage to not look at those things, and if you want certain information, just search more unbiased ways of finding that information online, the more you're going to feel better overall and feel in a much better mindset because it's not going to affect you as much. I'm even thinking, taking a very dramatic view on it, if you would have two versions of yourself, right? Let's say it's me in this very specific moment, and then almost like a different timeline of in the universe of me starting right now as well. And let's say one version of me would do nothing besides just chill and read random crappy magazines and watch random shows and news and reality TV and stuff like that. And the other version of me will do the complete opposite and will listen to interesting podcasts where they can learn something, would spend the time learning about, let's say, investing, and read very interesting books that are actually helpful, that educates with various online courses, and does that consistently for a year. I can guarantee that the version of me today compared to the version of me in 1 year from now, in those two versions, are going to be like miles apart. They're going to be completely different people. Even if you consider that it's the same personality and the same person, just because of all the information that gets consistently fed into my brain for a year continuously. I think people underestimate the impact that they can make even in a year with their life if they actually put their head to it.
Part of this new year is you starting YouTube. So tell me about your YouTube career so far, and what made you want to start YouTube, and what are you doing with it?
I think the reason why I decided to start YouTube is because I I was always attracted to the idea of creating videos and creating content for others to enjoy, hopefully. And I I think YouTube as a journey is quite hard. I mean, you probably find yourself in the same situation that you kind of start and you're like, it's gonna be fine. I'm just gonna film this video. I'm gonna put it up. And it's gonna be amazing. And then once you do it, you're like, okay, first of all, there's this 50 things that I need to fix, right? And then it's gonna take me about 3 days to edit those 50 things that I don't enjoy about it. And very likely I'll have to refilm this because actually it's not really that good. And you just kind of start and you realize more and more and more the limitations that you have. And then as soon as you surpass a limitation, you learn how to edit a specific thing or add a new transition or speak in a different way, you realize that there's another 10 in the back of that you need to sort out. And I think with YouTube, you need to really find the type of content that you enjoy spending your time creating, because if not, it's going to be very, very difficult for you to keep pushing and keep doing it, because the growth is going to be very, very slow.
Yes. Yes, I 100% agree. I remember my first video, and you could barely see my face. Somehow this video has like almost 200 views right now. And every time I watch it, I'm like so embarrassed of like, like the quality of it. And I'm like, I can't believe people are seeing it. I mean, I'm not gonna take it down. That's views right there, right? That's what. But yeah.
Say that now. Let's see once you manage to create a bigger following on the platform, and then you'll be like, oh, do I really care about those 200 views that much? Probably not.
At the same time, I'm like, I remember I had I think the first day that I posted the video, I had my first sub from a stranger, and I had my first comment, right? And we're still connected till this day because she's a YouTuber as well. And I remember like getting that notification that says like new comment, I think it says, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, someone.
You get very hyped about it, right?
I'm like, I cannot believe someone that I don't know is actually watching this. I really want you to talk about what you're doing with YouTube, because personally, I think there's not a lot of people that are doing what you're doing with YouTube.
Yes. So I think also, just to mention what I'm doing with YouTube currently and the type of content I'm putting out, I think I'm very glad because you told me that you enjoy it. And as especially when you start on YouTube, is one of those things that is the only thing that keeps you going. Is feedback from people like, oh my God, I enjoy the content I'm putting out, right? That's the only thing that will keep you going. Yeah. So the content I've been putting out so far has been mostly on behavioral science and cognitive biases. And I'm trying to include a bit of both description of what those biases are and how they influence your behavior, but also some examples that you can potentially apply. I've also focused quite a bit initially on a few videos on finance. So I think probably like many new YouTubers that just you start putting out content of things that you enjoy, and you just craft your craft while you're kind of going through the process. I think one of the things that I enjoy about the content I'm putting out is seeing that people get value from what I'm putting out there. Okay. But I think one of the things that I'm working on into creating currently is to create a better narrative behind all these psychological concepts in order to make it more applicable and engaging for the people that are watching the content, which I think this is still something that I'm working on currently, because I think the content is there, but the delivery of that content, I think it can still be improved to make it more appealing and engaging for the people that watch.
But I mean, you've been on it for like 4 months, I think, like 4 or 5 months. Yeah, you're gonna see it grow. Absolutely, it's just gonna take time, like everything else. Yeah,
of course. But everything in life takes time. So
yes,
you just need to work for it.
Unfortunately. Alex, thank you so much for having this conversation with me. I really appreciate you taking some time out of your schedule. I'm gonna post down below the links for Alex's YouTube channel, so you can go ahead and follow him, subscribe to his channel, and hope you can enjoy it. So thank you again for being here. Appreciate it.
No, thank you. It was a lot of fun, and hopefully we'll do this again in the future.
Absolutely. Take care.